Hey guys, it's Dylan with Rabbit Hole Studios. A lot of people asking me about how I animated the Animatronics in the last few videos, so I figured I'd just do a quick tutorial. It's fairly straightforward. I use a program called Bottango. It's completely free. You can download it for free online. Just go to the Bottango website. I'll link it in the description. Download it. When you first open it up, you're going to come to this screen. You're going to ignore all of this stuff, and you're just going to click New Studio Project. And so you're going to have your typical grid, all these controls up here, your pan, your view, rotate, scale, all that stuff. And I guess I should say, before you get started with any of this, you're probably going to want to wire up your Arduino. Currently, for this one in particular, I have a Mega and an Uno. The Uno is powering these three servos, and then the Mega is powering everything in the I portion. But on each of those, I have an Adafruit 16-channel servo driver. That's what's actually powering the servos. I literally just found the diagram on the Adafruit website to wire these up. It's very straightforward. But yeah, so once you have all that set up, then you're going to want to go into the program. And then once you're here, you have the Arduinos wired up. Don't hook up any of the servos yet, but just the Arduinos themselves powered on and hooked up to the software. Bottango will actually allow you to control the servos live from the computer, or after you have the animation done and everything, you can actually download the code and then upload it to Arduino and play it later on. But for now, I'm just going to show you how I've been doing it live. Once you have everything wired up, you have the Arduinos wired to the servo drivers, and then as well as hooked up to your computer. You're going to want to head over to hardware at the top corner here, and you see master. You're going to turn that on. Now this kind of automatically set itself up, but so I'm going to go over to drivers here now. Alright, so this is my default driver. You have to have at least one driver at all times, so this is your default. Obviously, like I said, I have two Arduinos wired up to this animatronic, but for right now, for this demonstration, I'm just going to use the Mega because I planned on using or showing you the eyelids. So I'm going to hook it up to the Mega. So first of all, I'm just going to type in Mega, and then that's what this one's going to be called. And for the most part, it's going to do all of this with you, or for you automatically. But if you have a lot hooked up like I do, well, more than one hooked up, sometimes it can kind of get finicky with the automatically picking stuff thing. So you have all of these ports over on this side, and then you can click each individual one to set up for each individual driver. So this one I believe is already hooked up to the Mega. But one thing you are going to want to do is, if you are using the servo drivers, you're going to want to go down to status and then click re-upload Bottango driver. You click OK, and you'll see this down here, include Adafruit PWM servo driver library. So that is going to include the driver library like you would if you're using the Arduino IDE. And if you're writing code for that, then you would have to upload the driver in there. This lets it know that when it's sending this live code to the Arduino, to include that driver library, so you can actually use the servo driver. So once I have that clicked on, do that first, and then I'm going to go on to the you're going to pick which Arduino you have. So I'm going to click my Mega, and you'll see it's uploading. Alright, so now you've got this check, and you've got the green dot. Green obviously means you're good to go, everything's set up, it's communicating properly. I should say that Bottango doesn't have a lot of video tutorials, but it does have an extensive manual that comes with the download, and it explains everything very, very well. So definitely, even with this video, still you can refer to that manual for almost any question that you're going to have with this program. And I mean, that's how I've learned just about everything, because there's nothing really on YouTube that I've been able to find. So now you're good with your driver. You're going to go over to build, and now we're going to start setting up the servos. So you're going to go down to here, create part. We're going to go to servo over here in the motors category. Servos just because that's what I'm using, obviously. Now over here on the right side of the screen, part setup, I'm going to name this one. So Particularly right now, I'm going to be doing the right eyelids of this Animate. I'm going to be doing the top and the bottom, the separate servos, so I'm going to be doing 2 servos for you. So once you create the servo, I'm going to make this one the, let's see, top lid R for right, and you can change the colors over here. You have the whole color scale. So position at home, rotation at home, that is the actual position of it just visually on the grid. I like to set them up roughly in the position of, it obviously doesn't have to be exact, this is strictly visual. All I do is I'll just try and get them roughly in the position and the orientation that they are on the actual physical mech. It just makes it a lot easier to keep track of when you're animating and setting stuff up. So this one is going to be the top right lid, and those are actually on their side facing outward. So I'm going to bring it up, and I'm actually going to rotate it 90 degrees. Alright. Oop, there we go. I've got this one oriented in the right way. I'm going to pull this out to the side because it's off to the left-hand side of the mech, so I'm just going to pull it over here. One thing I forgot to mention is that you're going to want to have as many of the servos as you can disconnected from the mechanism. So I mean, just, you know what I mean, disconnect the horn from the servo, or like this linkage right here from the horn. Just make sure that the part that moves is not hooked up to the servo yet, if possible. Some of these, like this one here inside between the eyes, kind of like in the nose area, that one is a real pain to get out and to disconnect. So that one's a bit of a pain to get disconnected, so I didn't mess with it. But like all these other, well, this one right here especially, this one is a major pain, and it takes a long time to get that disconnected because of the way I designed this thing. But the rest of them, like these screws, are all out in the open, so it's best to just take the screws out, disconnect the moving part from the servo before you set the servo up in Bottango, and you will see why soon. Alright, anyway, so I'm just going to say I roughly have this in the orientation that I want, and the location that I want. So, and this is just for demonstration purposes. I'll show you the actual full setup that I have after this. But, so you've got this. Alright, now we're going to go down to, and again, size, this is all just visual here, or whatever. Alright, so now you're going to go down to driver. You'll see it's already hooked up to the Mega because that's the only one that I have set up right now. One thing that I would like to point out is that Bottango limits your drivers to only 8 servos. So if you have something like this one actually has 9, so I am 1 over the limit for a single driver. So that's why I have the Mega and the Uno powering things. There are ways you can get around that. You can actually go into the IDE code for Bottango and manually change the limit of the servos in that, but it still only depends on the kind of drivers you have. I believe I can't do it with the Arduinos that I have, but I think, or at least, sorry, the servo drivers that I have, but Bottango actually makes their own servo driver. It's kind of like, I think, what do you call it, the shield, where it actually clips directly to the top of the Arduino, and I believe with those you can go up to like 12 servos per single Arduino controller. So something to look into. I don't have those. I'm just using, I already had the Adafruit driver, so that's what I'm using. So if you are using that, just wanted to say you are limited to 8. And on top of that, I believe the Uno can only really handle to like 5 servos max before it starts spazzing out and then it'll just disconnect. So anyway, now that I got that out of the way, it's already hooked up to the Mega. So I'm going to scroll down here. You're going to see it's going to be set on pin right now. And since we're using those Adafruit servo drivers, we're actually going to do the I2C and pin. And then don't really have to mess with the address right here, but we're going to do pin number, and then so it's at 0 right now, but you're just going to literally type in whichever channel on the driver that you have the servo plugged into. Mine is plugged into channel number 5, so I'm going to click that. I'm going to hit enter. Here you have the speed, max speed, and then jog speed. I think jog speed is it's not the actual animation speed. This is just the speed it uses to travel between poses when you're in this build section. So like this or this position, that's all that is. So this is at 50%. You don't really have to mess with that. And then the horn visual settings. Again, you don't really have. This is all just visual. It's not. It has nothing to do with the actual movement of the servo. So I don't really mess with any of this stuff either. So you got everything hooked up. You've got it set up to the I2C and pin, and then you've got it set up with the corresponding pin location in your servo driver. Now you're gonna go over here to this bar down here. It says servo is not live. We're going to set it to live, and you'll see it here, that little click over there. So the servo is on now, and you notice that little twitch. That was the servo moving, and that's why it's better to have everything disconnected before you turn these servos on, because sometimes depending on which position the servo is in and what position it moves to when you set it to live, if you've got it hooked up, it could jerk things, and it could try and push things past the limitation of what the actual mech that you have can do, and it could break things. Once you have the servo live and everything is hooked up on the Bottango software, then you're good to actually come in and connect the servo to the part on your mech. So I'm going to put that one on real quick. Alright, now that's on. So once you've got it hooked up to the servo, then you'll come down to this portion down here, and you'll see right now it's set to home. But if we go, you see it says PWM at 0. Alright, now notice what that did. That actually closed the eye. And this is where you're going to set up the limitations. There you go, you see that? Alright, so this is where you're going to set up the physical limitations of, or the rotational limitations of how far you want everything to move, how far you want each servo to move. So see, that's going past the halfway point. I don't really want it to do that. So you just kind of go to this arrow right here, and you can adjust the min and max movement for each, there we go, for each PWM location. So I'm just going to take this down to like maybe here. So that's max that this eyelet's going to open. Let's do it up a little bit more. Alright, so now, and this is really a simple example, but I mean it's pretty straightforward no matter what you're doing. You're literally just setting the limitations of the actual servo. So when you're animating it, it will only go to this point at one direction, and then this point at the other, and then this is directly in the middle of that. So now once you have that set up, I mean, yeah, you can go in, you can do another servo, and then, like I said, I try to do it in the, somewhat in the location that they actually are on the mech. It just makes it easier to keep track of everything. But I'm just going to do all the same stuff here. Alright, and what I'll do is I'll literally look at the exact locations of these, and I'll just type the exact same values in. That way everything just looks cleaner when you have it set up. So and so this one's going to be the bottom lid, which on my mech is in the back. So I'm just going to scoot it back a little bit, and then you're just going to do that. You set this one up the exact same way. You change the name, change the color if you want. We've already done the location, so that doesn't matter. And then choose the driver, the pin, all that stuff, set it to live, set these. Everything's exactly the same. Now, with this all being said, now I'm going to show you the next step. Once you have all of the servos set up for your entire mech, I'm actually going to leave here. I'm not going to save that. And I'm going to open up this right here. So this right here is my full setup for this iMac right here, and you can see here exactly what I'm talking about, where I have all the servos in roughly the exact same position and orientation they are on the physical mech, just visually to keep things in place and all that kind of stuff. So Next thing you're going to see is these panels here. This is called a pose blend, and this is basically a controller for a set amount of servos, and this is what I absolutely love about this software. This just makes it so easy, and I'll show you this at the end once we have this set up. Anyway, and so what I'm going to do is I want to change the way I have the eyelids set up in their pose blend, because I ran into an issue, and I'm going to tell you about the issue with the way I have it set up, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to set it up to hopefully kind of fix my issue. So basically what I've got right now, this one is for the eyes, alright, and they can look around, look up and down, and as you'll notice that when the eyes look up, wherever the eyes go, the eyelids follow. So the issue is that I have two pose blends that control the eyelids, and that starts to create issues when you're trying to animate something. And so I'm going to get rid of the eyelid movement in this blend pose, and then I'm actually going to split this one into two blend poses, one for each side of the eyelids, and I'm hoping that will give me enough control with what I want to do. So I've gone ahead and I've deleted this top pose blend, and now I'm going to show you how to set one up. Before we actually add the pose blend, you're going to want to add what's called target poses, and all that is, I've got all mine hidden right now because you don't really need them once you have the pose blend set up, but target poses are basically key poses basically, and all it is like for this one, this is the eyes, so this target pose over here, that is looking all the way to the left, this is all the way to the right, and then all the way down, all the way up. And then what the pose blend does is it's just going to blend wherever this cursor is inside the box. It's just going to blend between the poses in relation to where it is. So that's why it's so wonderfully helpful. So in order to do that, you actually have to have poses to blend between. So we're going to add those first. I'm going to go ahead and hide this again. But yeah, so we're going to go down here to create part, and then you're actually going to scroll all the way to the right, and under dynamics, you're going to see target pose. You're going to click on that, and then truthfully, it doesn't matter where they are. I just like to kind of scoot them to wherever the pose blend is going to be, just to kind of keep everything separate and a little bit more clean and organized. So this is going to be for the left set of eyes, or left set of eyelids. So I'm going to scoot it over to the left. I'm going to bring it up. And again, it doesn't matter where they are, because once they're hooked up to the pose blend, you're actually going to set where the poses are on this anyway. This has, its physical location here has absolutely no relation to anything on this. So we're going to do 4 target poses. I'm going to add all 4 of mine at the very start. So I'm just going to kind of add them and then get them in the location that I want. So alright, so I've got all these set up. Now I'm actually going to hook up a pose to each one of these target poses. So I'm going to start with this one up here, and this one I'm going to make the eyes open, all the way open. So I'm just going to do eyes open. Alright. And the reason, so I'm going to do all the way open, like as wide as they'll go, and then I'm going to do one that's all the way closed, and so that way, right at the home, right when it's at the very center of the pad, they're going to be kind of in this resting position where they're going to be normally if the eyes are just looking ahead. So when you're setting these target poses, you ideally want to go, each pose you want to be all the way to the extreme as far as the physical movements. You want to be all the way to one extreme and then all the way to the other extreme, and then that way you have that full range of motion to blend between, if that makes sense. So anyway, yeah, so this one's going to be all the way open. So you have it named. I'm going to go down to edit pose here, and then all you're going to do is move whichever servos that you want this pose to involve. So I'm doing the eyelids, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to move this all the way open. And then I'm going to take the bottom lid, I'm going to move it all the way open as well. And then you'll see each servo that I have moved while the edit function is active, it has added it to this target pose library down here. And so now the top blink and then the bottom blink left, they've both been added, and then you'll see their locations. So this one's all the way at 0 and this one's all the way at 1. So I have all that. I'm going to click save. All right, so now I click off of that, it goes to home, and then click on it. So that target pose is all set. Now I'm going to do the exact same for the bottom one. I'm just going to do this one, and I'm going to call it eyes closed. So this one is going to be all the way closed. We're going to edit pose, and then I'm just going to take these sliders again and just put them all the way in the other direction. I'm going to click save pose, and now I've got open and close, and then that's home. So now for these two on the sides, my hope is to incorporate the up and down movement of the eyelids as they follow the eyes looking around. I'm going to get rid of it from this pose blend, so this one is only going to control the eyes, and I'm hoping to incorporate that movement into this pose blend now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this one the eyes up position. So, you know, when the eyes are all the way up, the eyelids are going to be just in that resting position but tilted up. So in order to get a frame of reference for where I want them to be, first, before I go into edit this one, I'm going to click on this servo, and I'm just going to bring the eyes all the way up. So that way, now, when I go ahead and I edit this pose, I know where that pupil is going to lie, so that way I can just bring this eyelid up and it's going to rest kind of right above it. Alright, and then same thing with this bottom. I'm just going to kind of bring it up just a little bit, something like that. Nothing too crazy. You know, it's going to be a pretty subtle movement. Yeah, so now I've got that set, and then if I click off, they're both going to go back. And then those are going to, yeah. Excuse me. So now I've got that, and then now I've got one last target pose to set up, and this one is just going to be the eyes looking down. So I'm going to call this eyes. Whoop. Goodness, there we go. I'm going to call this eyes down, and I'm going to edit the pose again, and I'm going to, oh, actually, hold up. I'm going to go back. I'm going to set the eyes to look down, and then now I'm going to go ahead and edit this pose, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, except I'm just going to tilt the lids down. And one thing that you should note, you'll notice, I mean, obviously, I have this servo moved right now, but it hasn't added it to the target pose library because I didn't move it while I was editing the pose. It was already moved beforehand. So that's why you want to go ahead and do it, before you do this. So that way it doesn't get added to your library. It doesn't screw you up. So yeah, I just want to point that out. So now I'm going to take this lid and I'm going to move it down. Again, it's going to be kind of just sitting like right above the eyes. And then this one, I'm just going to move down a little bit. It's going to be something like that. Both those set where I want them. I'm going to click save. All right, and then now you'll see I've got, let me click off this. All right, now I've got eyes all the way open, eyes all the way closed, and then we've got eyes looking up and then looking down. All right, check that out. So now we have everything set up and we're ready to do the pose blend. So I'm going to go create part, scroll all the way over to dynamics again, and then right next to the target pose you have pose blend. So it's going to start off, the default that it's going to want to set up as is a one-dimensional blend pose, and this the function is the exact same as the two-dimension, which is what these ones are. You just have a less range of motion. This is basically just a back and forth. This one, obviously, you can blend between more poses and kind of involve more servos and stuff like that. Anyway, so I'm going to click this drop down. I'm going to change it to 2 dimensions. All right, and then again, it doesn't really matter where this is or what orientation it is or anything like that, but just to kind of get everything cleaned up and a little less confusing, I'm going to put it right in front of the servos that it's going to be controlling. So now we have this. We have our pose blend set up and in the space that we want it, and then we have the target poses set up. So now we're ready to connect the target poses to the pose blend controller. So, I'm also actually going to name it first. So this is going to be left lids. All right. Now, we have it named, we have it set up, we have it set to 2 dimensions, and we're going to go all the way down and click Add a Pose. And this is the connecting the poses. This is super easy. You're literally just, you click Add Pose, and then you're just going to click the poses that you want to add. So I have eyes open, and then I'm going to click eyes closed. Alright. Alright. So, now I have everything set up. Before I do anything, I'm actually going to I'm going to hide all of these just to get them out of the way. Alright. Now you're going to notice you have all 4 of your poses, and I set up 4 target poses, and I really only have 2. I have the all the way open, which is down here, mind you. It was up here, now it's down here. And then all the way closed is down here, or is up here, but I had the target pose down here. And then the other, the like eyes looking up, and then the eyes looking down is completely gone. Alright, so you're going to notice that at first, that nothing seems to be working right. Don't worry, this is what I was telling you, where the target pose location means nothing as far as the actual pose blend. So, you're going to see these. These are the actual relative pose locations as far as the pose blend controller is concerned. So, I don't know why it just arbitrarily, when you hook everything up, it just arbitrarily puts things wherever they want. So, you'll notice one of the reasons I'm missing 2 of my ranges of motion is because they're literally stacked on top of each other. Here, in this window, you're going to see an X and a Y coordinate. And these are the locations of these little buttons inside of this, the blend pose square. All I'm going to do is, alright, so I'm going to do the eyes open. You'll see this one is set at 50 and then 0. So the X is side to side, and then the Y is up and down. So it's set at 0. I'm going to set this at 1 because I want it to be at the top of it. And then the eyes closed is set at 1. I'm going to set it to 0. So I'm just going to flip them. And then these are both set at 50, 50, 50, 50. So they're both set at the middle. They're stacked on top of each other, which is very counterproductive because it can't do both poses at the same time. So the eyes down, I believe I had that set to the left. So I'm going to keep the X, or I'm sorry, I'm going to keep the Y in the 50 because I want to keep them in the middle this way. And then I'm just going to move this one to, yep, I'm going to move that one to 1. So that's going to bring it all the way to that side. And then this one I'm going to move to 0, which is going to bring it all the way to that side. So, now that I've got that, there you go. Alright, so, now that I've got all of these spread out and where I want them, whoa, I just moved that, I didn't mean to. Alright, you're literally done. Everything is set up. So, now, I'm going to go here, I'm going to click on the cursor of the pose plan, and I've got up, or I'm sorry, I've got open, I've got eyes looking down, I've got the eyes looking, or I'm sorry, eyes closed, and then I've got my eyes looking up. So, and then you'll see, you can go wherever the frickin' heck you want, and it just blends between all of those different poses, and you have all that range of motion. And so that fixed my problem that I was having before, and so now you can click off of that, and then it just goes, oh yeah, and then so in the center here, sorry, in the center here is home. Now that I have this set up, I can go ahead, I'm going to go to the target poses for the eyes, and I'm going to get rid of all of the eyelid movement for the eyes. And so I'm going to delete this one, and then I'm going to delete the bottom blink, and then I'm going to delete the top blink. And so all I have now is the up look, which is the servo that makes it look up. So, alright, you'll see now, yep, there we go. I look up, and all it does is move the eyes. Alright, and then I'm going to go to down look. I'm going to delete all of the movements that involve the eyelids, and so now I'm literally just left with the servo that controls the eyes themselves looking up or down. So now everything is separate. I move my eyes wherever I want, and the eyelids don't move at all. And then now over here I have this controller that has all of the ranges of movement that I want. Bada bing. Obviously the other side is going to be the exact same as this. They're all the exact same process. You're literally just setting your target poses. You're picking whatever poses that you want the pose blend to control and to blend between, and then you're just going to hook them all up to the pose blend, and then set their relative location within the pose blend controller or the window itself, and yeah. Then you've got your control set up. The thing is rigged and it's ready to go. Once you've got everything set up the way that you want it, you're just going to go over to this the Animate window here. You're going to click on that, and then you have an animation timeline with keyframes and graphs. Very, very similar to Blender or any other animation software I've seen. It's very straightforward. I'm not really going to get into explaining any of that because you could probably learn many more things on YouTube than I could teach you. But because like I said, it is literally the exact same as like any other animation software. It's very straightforward. So with that being said, you're ready to animate. Over here, you've got, it's going to start off with a default animation, and then you can add a whole bunch more after that, so you can have like one that does one thing, one that does another. I just had different tests for different things as I was kind of getting this thing pieced together. So like this one right here, this is one that I did completely before I rigged anything with these pose blends, and all I did, you can see all of these channels here, is each servo animated individually, which if you take the time can get you really, really nice movements, but it takes so long and it's so many. So like for example, I have 9 servos on this mech right here, and all of these tracks is an animation track for one servo, and I've got a scroll bar down here which like it's not too bad, but it can become a little bit annoying, especially when you know you're trying to keep track of like things like blinking, and so like everything has to be moving at the same time, so you've got to be keeping track of like all of those movements all at once. Whereas now if we go to this one, which has been animated with the pose blends, and you know this one controller, you have a track for, this is the neck up controller or a pose blend, and you only have one track for it, and that one track controls 3 servos. So you can very quickly, if you set everything up right, you can go from having all of this mess and literally cut it in half or less than half. And it makes things so much easier to animate. It makes things quicker. It makes things more efficient. It makes things easier to keep track of. Yeah. So that's how you get everything set up. Yeah, and then you can just start animating. All you're really doing is you've got this the scrubber here, and you're just kind of scrub along, and then anytime you can either add a keyframe here on each of these tracks, or you can go through and just moving right here, and you'll see as soon as I move this, it automatically added a track. So I'm just going to delete that. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going to get too much into explaining any of the animation side of things. At this point, you're ready to just start messing around. You know, once you get the hang of things and you get a little bit used to how the animation controls work and all that kind of stuff, and you get everything working how you like it, with a little bit of patience, you can have something pretty cool like this. I just want to say this is no means an end-all be-all tutorial for all the ins and outs of Bottango and how you should do things, and this is the only way to do it. All I'm saying is this is how I did it for this specific mech. A lot of people were asking what program I was using and then how I did it, and so I'm literally just showing you exactly how I set it up for this. Bottango can do a lot more. It has a lot more features that I haven't messed with, so I'm not going to teach you how to do them. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this was helpful. I tried to keep it somewhat cohesive and not boring. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you like it. Bye.